Mitch from Hard Intentions YouTube channel. And before we get started on our video, I want to let everybody know we're doing a prepay for hoodies, button-up shirts, crew neck sweatshirts, crew neck t-shirts, and razorbacks. We're going to have them all on there for a few weeks so you can prepay your orders, and then we can get over to the print shop and get everything made. So this is a design we're running with. Of course, it's going to say Hard Intentions on the top. This was one of my wife's favorite ones that she really wanted to see put on a shirt, and a lot of people kind of expressed an interest in it, so we thought we'd go with that. And then this will be the, let's see, where's that at? This will be where the logo is here. We're going to put this on there, so that's our next shirt, and it's online right now on our website at hardintentions.com. And you can prepay your orders, and the reason we do prepaid orders is we can't go over there and get like 50 button-up shirts, different sizes, and 50 hoodies, and it would just cost way too much. And then if we didn't sell everything, we'd be taking quite a loss. So this way we can just go over and get printed the things that people ordered, along with some extra t-shirts and razorback shirts for women. And the button-up shirts are going to be a charcoal gray. This is one I had done, the Naughty Biker, and you could tell, you can see, we print the logo above the pocket. I've been wearing this one, but that's, we're doing button-up shirts, hoodies, crew neck sweatshirts, and t-shirts, and razorback shirts for everyone that likes the Living Dead girl. So we hope you get on the site and get your order in, and we'll take care of it. Last time we did a prepay, we sold about 25 hoodies, I think, and we got them all out. People seem to like them, and we really appreciate the business a lot. Trust me, we really do. And the support's just amazing. And so that's what we got going on the website, hardintentions.com. Thank you very much for checking it out. Take care and do it hard. I kind of got sidetracked on my story about my prison career. I left off where I was at Corcoran. I left Corcoran in '98, and I went to Lancaster Prison. So I thought I'd pick up around that era. I think that's where I left off, that I was going to Lancaster. I was trying to go to Chino PWC crew, actually, because at one time they took lifers, but and I got approved to go there. All my mail went there, but I ended up going to Lancaster because they just decided, no more PWCs lifers at Chino, because they weren't letting them out. So they quit sending them there. So I got transferred to Lancaster in October of '98. And that's Lancaster was the beginning of a whole new experience for me. I had quit using, started doing my time clean without getting loaded, without drinking, snorting crank or smoking weed or any of that shit. So, I drove up to Lancaster Prison. They had reception in 2 building on D Yard, and in the reception building, Fish Row, I was celled up with this cat that he knew my homeboy in San Quentin, who was a gang member. He was celled up with him. He was friends with him back in the early '80s. So he kind of knew how prison was back in the day, and we would sit around the cell and talk about how it had changed and how it sucked, and so I was on D Yard, which had like some nuts on one side of the yard, little mainline, and the other side was mainline, but they had the drug program. And it's the first prison I've been at where they had the fence down the middle of the yard. They actually split the yard in half. And the yard was all decomposed granite. There was no grass. And, it kind of sucked. But I used to go out the yard, every chance I got while I was on orientation. And there's some pretty cool Native American cats there, and I had a lot of homeboys on the other side of the fence. I used to see during yard, and they're like, "Hey, when you go to committee, let them know you want to stay in this yard. It's cool over here." I was like, "Yeah, whatever." So I went in there, and the captain's like, "Man, you look familiar. You ever been here? You ever been there?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I told him, hey, I want to, get into vocation and do this and that and the other. And, the main reason I got transferred to Lancaster, I wanted to get out of Corcoran, is there was no AA programs, NA programs, hobby, none of that in Corcoran. If there was, I probably would have stayed there because Corcoran actually had a good work program. And the yard wasn't split in half or any of that stuff. After I left, they kind of messed it up. So anyway, I go to committee, and this captain's, he used to work at Chino, and so anyway, I told him things I want to do, and I want to program and this and that, and he goes, "Oh, you were here, there," and he started seeing some of the places I've been. He goes, "Send him to Sea Yard," and so Sea Yard was called Jurassic Park. I guess that's where they had most of their trouble with Sea Yard, but I was like, "Hey, I'm here to program," and he goes, "You can program on Sea Yard." I said, I'd like to get in there. He goes, "You can go to Sea Yard." His answer was just, "You're going to Sea Yard, period, no matter what." So uh, I always end up on the asshole yards, it seems like. And in the end, you know what? It always works out. Uh, so anyway, I got moved over to Sea Yard, and they were locked down. They put me into one building, which I don't know if that was like orientation for that building or what, but the yard was locked down because right before I got there, the blacks and the Southsiders went at it in Building 1. They had a little riot inside the building, and I guess it was pretty ugly. Female staff got injured, and it was a pretty serious deal from what I understand. So they're slammed, and I get in a cell, and I had a single cell for a couple of days, and then they put this nutter in my cell. Guy was like just totally burnt out from speed. He was from out in the desert and in Hemet area. And he was just a straight. He was burnt out from speed, and I mean burnt. And he got in a wreck. They started letting. Even though we're slammed, the riot was between the Southsiders and the blacks, so they were having white dudes go over to the kitchen and work, and they would let white dudes with a few Southsiders and then white dudes with blacks. They were switching it up. But he got in a wreck with some Southsiders over there, and they moved him over to A Yard. And then I got a new cellie, Roy. He was a youngster from up in Humboldt area, and he was a good kid. He had a hot 25 to life, for a murder, and he was a good kid, but he was kind of introvert, and he was into this. Reading literature, different types of literature and of, kind of white, supremacist type shit. And I kind of got on him about that. I said, "Hey, look, man, them dudes are selling you that literature, making cash off of you. But I said, you're living here now in this prison system, man. You ain't living out in the world where you can live some high and mighty, idealistic shit, So I kind of got through to him, But Roy was a trippy kid, man. He was a good kid. Later on, he went to another yard and he got a couple stabbings and he beat him. And then I heard he ended up hanging himself, but which kind of broke my heart. But so we're on lockdown, and the food, man. I'm telling you, they were giving us these trays. Now, when I was in Corcoran during lockdowns, they would go over to the kitchen, bring us the plastic stack trays, and you got a pretty good issue of food. And I made sure of that, and I was a tier tender, and some cases, and the tier tenders would pass out the trays, not the cops. But in Lancaster, man, I'm telling you, like, we were getting just a couple bites of each item on your tray. I mean, it was just really bad, and the food was just, I was just like, man, this food is just shitty. I mean, it was really had gone downhill. Corcoran had pretty good food, so I was really upset with the food, the quality of the food, and the portions were just so fucking small, man. I was just like, man, this is not cool. And we're slammed. And Corcoran, whatever race is involved with the incident, that's who gets locked down. Even like if it was Hispanics, they would segregate like Paisas, Northerners, Southerners, whoever was involved. That's who got slammed. Everyone else came out. And Corcoran had everyone. I mean, Lancaster had everyone locked down for this riot, every race, So I was like, man, fuck this, And after a few weeks of this, man, I had a package sent. You could still get packages from home. I had a package sitting in R&R, and I still use dip. I had quit smoking, but I had dip, food, coffee, and I'm like, man, I'm running out of coffee. And I hate state coffee, but I was drinking state coffee, and my cellie was like, what can you do about it? And so one day I'm and they have the holes in the doors. It's perforated metal, so you can see out your door. You hear every freaking noise, and this dude Mike, he's from Fresno, and he lived with a homeboy of mine, and so they're down there. Hey, Smiley, you want some wine? I'm like, nah, I'm cool, because I quit drinking wine, all that. And they took the sugar away from us, and these guys are using Kool-Aid packets from the lunches, which they did away with, and apples and jelly and shit to make wine. And I always just use sugar and oranges or grapefruit, stuff like that. And anyway, they're like, hey, you want some wine? You want some wine? I'm like, nah, I'm cool, Yeah, come on, they're drunk. So about, 20 minutes later, I get my line. Guy says, hey, shoot your line. I pull it in. There's this bag, I pull it in. And it's just like a bag like this. And it's just glow in the dark red. I mean, it's just flaming red. And from using these Kool-Aids for sugar, to make the wine. And I'm like, hey, what is this? And he's like, that's wine. And then, instead of saying, hey, I don't want this shit, because I already told him I didn't want it. I said, hey, thanks a lot, and I just popped the bag and flushed it, man. I'm not drinking that shit, But, so after a few weeks, like a month of this, the deputy warden came in. I think his name was Yarborough, kind of short, squat dude, and he's walking around the cells. And I go, hey, deputy warden. Hey, deputy warden, and he's going to black cells, Hispanic cells, talking to these dudes. And he walked by, and I go, hey, got a minute? And the guy just walked by my cell. So I go, now my cellie's, kind of paying attention. He's a youngster. So I go, hey, man, where the fuck you going? You got nothing to say to white dudes? And you got to remember, white dudes are outnumbered in this print pretty bad. Like I said, I lived in a building where there were 10 white dudes out of 200 people, so that was on a different yard. But anyway, so he walks around the top tier and down the stairs, and now I'm yelling at he's going to leave the building. And so I go, hey, motherfucker, you ain't got nothing to say to whites, huh? Oh, if you're not black or Mexican, you got nothing to say, huh? Yeah, white dudes are just out. Is that what it is, motherfucker? And this guy's a deputy warden. I don't give a fuck. And so my cell's like, man, be cool, man. That's the warden, man. I said, man, fuck that dude. He ain't no different than any other cop around here. And, to me, warden or CO, they're all the same, G. Gordon Liddy was in prison, man. He said the warden, it's kind of a joke. He said, these prison guards are stupid. And the warden is just a prison guard who's been at that prison longer than any other prison guard. So now he's a warden, so that makes him the dumbest one of all, And so anyway, I'm yelling at him. I'm like, hey, motherfucker, you got nothing to say to the whites, huh? Yeah, fuck you, you punk, And my cellie's like, dude, they're going to get us for this. He's, he doesn't understand that you can talk to these guys like that. Some of them you can talk to on a straight up level, and some of them you can't. So anyway, the guy looks up at me. I'm like, what the fuck, man? You got nothing to say to us or what? And he comes up to the stairs, and he comes to my cell. He goes, what's going on? And I go, hey, look, man, why are the whites locked down? I go, I wasn't here when this shit happened. I'm locked down. We're white. The whites weren't involved. We can't get our canteen. We can't get our packages. I go, we're being treated like shit. I go, you're giving us trays, man. I'm taking a shit once every 3 days. You're not even feeding us right, dude. We're getting fucked on our food, everything. And we're not getting visits. We're not getting no yard time. What the fuck? I go, the whites weren't even involved. We should at least be getting yard. And so I go on it, and he goes, hey, I hear you. And then he tells me, I'm the chief deputy warden. I said, I don't give a fuck who you are, you know. I go, you're just another cop to me. And this dude's face was red. I go, we're being fucked over. He was mad that I was talking to him like that, but I had valid issues, you know. And so anyways, he goes, I'll check into it. I go, what the fuck does that mean, you'll check into it? And that's when he told me, I'm the chief deputy warden. And if I say I'll check into it, I'll check into it. I said, yeah, all right, cool. And I just turned my back on him. Then he's so split, you know. And yeah, the next day we got yard. And they called all the white dudes out for their packages. So, you know, it was pretty cool. I mean, you know, and that's how it is, man. If you don't speak up, you know, with a little bit of force, if you don't do something when you're being fucked around in there, you're going to continue to get fucked around. I mean, it's just like a bully, right? If he's got some guy he can step on and prey on, he's just going to keep doing it until the guy lashes out, you know, and does something, you know, to retaliate. So that's the way prison is with staff, you know. You know, and if you start from the bottom and it don't work, you just start working your way up. And there he was, and I saw him, so I took advantage of that. Anyways, the lockdown lasted a little while, and when they started to decide they wanted to let guys out, they moved me over to 5 building with I moved up with a homeboy of mine named Jack, and we were cellies for a while there on C Yard, but what they did was they made that one building like a reception type building for that yard, and so they had 2 buildings on one side and then 3 on the other, and you know, C Yard was supposed to be a tough guy yard and all that. It was man, it was all right. I mean, to me, it was just like any other yard, but I thought, well, since I'm here, there's not a lot going on there. They did have hobby. And I ordered some art supplies straight away. The hobby there was a pain in the ass, so just like everywhere else there was hobby, you got the goon squad always trying to squash your shit. So I had a bunch of stupid procedures to go through to get your stuff. But I got some art supplies. And, you know, one thing I don't like about Lancaster, that place was always locked down. And I mean, it was always locked down. I did not like that. But, so I got into vocation. I remember when we first started coming out, you know, and I got into vocation, and you gotta go through a strip out line and check in. They pull your card so they know you're behind the wall, and man, it was cold. I remember standing there, you know, I had a jacket on and everything, but my ears were like icicles, man. I thought, man, I gotta get a fucking beanie, you know. But so I did the vocational plumbing there, and yeah, it was pretty cool. It had 10, it was like 10 paperwork things, and they had where you do projects, you know, soldering pipes and black pipe, threading pipes, fitting pipe fitting, you know, we use screw together joints and all that kind of stuff, fittings that are threaded and fittings that are soldered, and plastic and all this other kind of stuff. Then using a pipe threading machine. So they had these projects, you know, and I do one, and I can knock them all out in one day. It's easy. And the supervisor, you know, the instructor in it's a vocational class. He goes, no, you can only do one a week. And the class is supposed to be like 10 weeks minimum. And so I said, look, I got a job as a plumber, you know, because I've been talking to the plumbing shop. And, you know, my previous boss in Donovan taught me so much about plumbing, man, that I could have passed that class in a week. But so I did the test, a written test, and I'm like, give me another test. And, you know, he would only let me do one project and one test a week. So I go, all right, look, man. He goes, when you're done with the test, I'll get you out here right away. You can start working as a plumber. So I go, all right, so I finished the 10 tests, and then I go, all right, I'm ready to graduate. And he goes, no, I'm not going to graduate you. And I said, what are you talking about, man? I got a job. You told me if I do these 10 tests, 10 weeks, you'll get me out of here. And he says, look, I want you to create 5 more tests for the curriculum, and then I'll let you go. I was like, man, are you serious? So, you know, I guess they deal with so many idiots, man, and so many morons that they get surprised when there's someone there who's actually taking things serious and knows a little bit about what's going on. And it kind of gets back to what I used to say. We had a lot of guys in the early days when I was in prison that they would do 3, 4, 5 years and get out for a few years and come back. And them dudes had skills and they get in all the different trades but them guys are all pretty much gone. So now all you had was a bunch of guys that just grew up using drugs and street gang banging. They didn't know anything about working, man. So anyway, I got the code book out and I created 5 more tests for the curriculum and I graduated me. And I got a job on the yard on C yard as a plumber. And the free staff, the boss of all the plumbing was on A yard. And so I started working on C yard, and they put me with this guy. He was a Hungarian dude. He was from Hungary, and man, he had a heavy accent, and he was real stuck on himself, man. I remember going to a cell, and this black dude had something wrong with his shitter, and this free staff of mine was arguing with him, and I said, hey, man, just chill out. And he was just in this dude's face, and this dude was serious. I'm in a level 4 yard. These guys will take off on staff. They don't give a shit. And this guy's disrespecting the dude in the cell. And I'm like, wow, he was just so stupid. I guess it's just a different culture. I don't know. He just thought he could disrespect people and all that shit. And he was a strange dude, man. He dressed weird, real tight pants, and just, but he was a big dude. So anyway, I'm working with this guy, and I could tell, man, he don't like minorities. He don't like women. He thinks, men are top of the food chain, white dudes and all that. And that's, whatever. But, not to get into the, what race is better or any of that kind of shit. That was just his mentality. And so, I had enough of this fucking dude. So anyway, I got this guy on my crew named Wolf, and he's a stocky dude. Said he was in the military and all that kind of shit, and so he's working with us, and he kind of favors up to this cat, And prison plumbing on these new yards is pretty simple. If you're just working on the water and the toilets, it's pretty simple. But we go in the kitchen one time, man, and now this dude, I told him about my boss in Donovan's. She's a Mexican woman, Chicana, whatever you want to, Mexican American. So she taught me, man, so much about plumbing. Just, on top of being a decent person, she knew how to teach me everything I needed to know, So anyway, this guy made statements like, what was it like working with women? I said, it's fine, So anyway, we're in the kitchen one time, and it's pretty clear now. This guy don't like women. He don't like Mexicans, blacks, whatever. So when they cook them, they have pans of like whatever they got left over. They had rice, and they just dump that shit in the drain and wash the pans. Guys in the kitchens, they got little satellite kitchens on each yard, and they just send the food over from the main kitchen. That's how the new prisons are. So guys are working there. There's not a lot of perks. They just want to get their job done and get the fuck out of there. So anyway, the drain gets full of rice, and then the rice swells up in the drain that plugs the drain, and then it gets soft too. So we go in there and the drain's plugged, and I'm like, I got this. He goes, no, I'll do it. And so he's running the snake down the freaking drain instead of pulling the clean out, taking the trap apart and running it in like that. And he gets the whole snake in there, in and out, in and out. I'm like, dude, that's not going to work, Then so we get the little machine, the small machine, and he's running that in and out. Finally, he pulls a trap and everything, I said, dude, it's not going to work. Because what happens is that rice is solid in there, and you run the snake in there, and you pull it out, it just closes. It's like putting a knife in the warm butter. When you pull the knife out, it closes. I'm like, that ain't how So he does that about 5 times, man. He can't clear the drain, and I go, finally he goes, go ahead and try it. I'm telling him, let me do it. So I got a rag, and I tore a piece of, almost like a rope, and I tied it around the tip of the snake, and I ran it in there. Boom! It got in about, 10 feet, cleared the drain. We put it back together, and everything worked fine. And so what happens is that rope in there knocks all the rice off the pipe as it goes in, and it pushes it out, And he goes, oh, he's looking at me, and we got everything back together. We're leaving. I go, you know who taught me how to do that? And he goes, who? I said, a woman. I go, a Mexican woman. His face got all red, man. And he wasn't liking that shit, Sometimes it's fun to push idiots' buttons, And about a week later, I put a roll of masking tape in the toolbox. And when we got back to the yard, he saw me take it out. And I use it for my artwork and shit. Everybody needs tape, right? And glue. And he goes, you didn't ask me if you could have that tape. I go, hey, it's no big deal. It's just a roll of tape. And I go, the least you know, the better. And so he ended up letting me go. He goes, I'm not going to write you up for that, but you got to leave the crew. And see, by now, he's sided up with this guy, Wolf, So I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. So I just quit working there, and I talked to the main supervisor of the plumbing shop, and I ended up getting transferred over another yard as a plumber, A yard. And because they had just converted A yard over from a level 3 to a level 4. But while I was on C yard, I was tattooing a little bit. I tattooed my homeboys. We were locked down quite a bit on that yard, and I liked it. We had a friend, John. He had Life Without, older man. He worked the canteen. If we're slammed, he would call me out of the building to go to get my canteen. And that's how that. Still a little bit of old schoolness going on. Where like if you knew somebody somewhere, they could, get things done like that. But so I was tattooing a bit, and I remember, they got the open doors there. I had a little radio and shit and CDs, and I remember playing my music, and my neighbor was my homeboy guy, Woody, and he had Life Without and shit, and he's like Mr. Country Western all the time, and classic rock and all that. And I'm listening to punk rock and shit, and he's like, hey man, can you turn that shit down? And I'm like, yeah, sure, So I had a Bad Religion CD, and that's 80 to 84. How Can Hell Be Any Worse, plus 8084, all their hit stuff when they first started. But one song, it says, neighbors, let us come together, and it goes on. But that one part, I put the CD player by the door, and I go, hey, Woody. And he goes, what? And I played just that one spot, and I'd hit where you could return it to the beginning of the song, and I would say, neighbors, neighbors, neighbor. I did that shit for like 5 minutes straight, man. He was like, all right, I got it. Yeah, it drove him crazy. But, that was a disrespectful fucking pen, man. Guys be yelling and screaming out their fucking doors all hours of day and night. And I like things quiet, so, guys are bumping their fucking music out the door. And I would play my shit where you might be able to hear it like right outside my door, but not, down the tier. I try to be respectful, And these dudes are bumping their tunes, and so I just put in a Motorhead CD, put my radio by the door, full blast, and went to sleep, took a little nap. And when I woke up, my CD player had stopped, and, played through the CD, and the tier was quiet as a mouse. So, my celly by then I had a different celly, and there's another homeboy of mine, but he goes, damn, brother, he sure quieted the tier down, I said, yeah. So, I stayed over there a few months, man, and that's the yard where we had a white Crip come on the yard, and my friend Johnny just started his term. He's a punk rocker, out of Orange County, and he's a good dude, man. He just wanted to work out, and I think he had a 20-year bit, at 85%. So, he just got there, and this white crip come on the yard, man, and